Hello and welcome to History Inquirer. This is where we inquire into the past to understand the present. In today's episode, we'll be looking into the winter encampment at Valley Forge during the Revolutionary War. The key questions will be: what happened at Valley Forge? How did the experience affect Washington's army? What impact did this have on the rest of the war? We will also look at the French alliance that was cemented during this time and the impact this had on the war. So with all that said, grab a drink, a seat, a snack if you want, and let's get started. In the month of December 1777, Washington's army marched into Valley Forge to set up camp for the winter. The men were exhausted and dressed in ragged clothing. Private Joseph Plum Martin, who was there at the time, wrote his memoir. The army was now not only starved, but naked. The greatest part were not only shirtless and barefoot, but destitute of all other clothing, especially blankets. We were now in a truly forlorn condition. No clothing, no provisions, and as disheartened as need be. We arrived at our destination a few days before Christmas. Joseph Plum Martin also remarks on the blood from the soldiers' feet being tracked through the snow. This paints a miserable picture. However, the soldiers that marched into Valley Forge were also confident in the fact that they had fought the British and nearly won. One reason why the encampment at Valley Forge was so miserable versus other winter encampments was due to Congress. Joseph Trumbull, eldest brother of the soon-to-be famous painter, was an aggressive and highly successful commissary at purchases. But in June 1777, his employers took away his power to hire and fire deputies and stopped paying either him or them commissions. Trumbull quit, as did most of his staff, and Congress replaced him with William Buchanan, who proved incompetent. 3 months later, Thomas Mifflin, who was quartermaster general, had the crucial responsibility of getting food and other supplies to camp, also resigned. Hoping he would reconsider, Congress refused to appoint a successor, and the post remained vacant for 4 months. And that was from Woody Holden's Liberty Suite. Another reason, perhaps the main reason, was financial, because the American currency at the time was a paper continental, which was losing value as the war went on. The Americans would use these when buying food from farmers, whereas the British would use silver and gold. So you have to ask yourself, which would you rather have? These paper continentals that were losing their value, or silver and gold, which would hold their value even after the war. Now, in order to prevent American farmers from selling to the British, the ones that did would be court-martialed and possibly fined, jailed, or whipped. So they're basically in between a rock and a hard place. Oneida Indians were hired by Washington to go after the supplies flowing to the British and were commanded by Nathaniel Gist, a veteran of the French and Indian War. Private Joseph Plum Martin wrote about being sent on foraging missions to acquire food from the local populace in the surrounding countryside. Nevertheless, despite efforts to acquire food, supplies, and build adequate housing, many soldiers lost their lives at Valley Forge. An astonishing 2,500 soldiers, nearly a fourth of the original contingent, lost their lives during the Army's 6-month encampment at Valley Forge, but contrary to myth, almost none died of hunger or cold. With rare exceptions, flour continued to flow into camp, and cornmeal always did. so the men were never without their savory fire cake, griddle cooked batter. Nearly all who died that winter succumbed to disease. Of course, pathogens and poor nutrition. Repeat that. Of course, pathogens travel more easily when immune systems were weakened by inadequate clothing and poor nutrition. Yeah, that did not help. If you're wondering what a fire cake is, then you should know that it is a little flat cake made of flour or cornmeal, water, and a little salt available and cooked on hot coals. These are aboard. Now, Townsends has a good video on it, and I'll put a link to it in the description. Washington knew that he needed to get the supply problems sorted out, and in January he hosted a delegation from Congress to address the situation, including Congressman Francis Dana from Massachusetts. Afterwards, Francis Dana became a loyal supporter of Washington and ensured that his supply reforms were carried out, including the appointment of General Nathanael Greene as Quartermaster General. Under General Greene, the supply department was greatly improved, with foraging parties being organized under General Anthony Wayne and General Lighthouse Harry Lee. Soon, they were not only able to procure food, but also clothing, and by April 1778, most of the supply problems were fixed. Underdevelopment also aided Washington's army. In February 1778, France officially agreed to an alliance with the United States against Great Britain. We are often told that France agreed to the alliance because of the American victory at Saratoga, but that does not tell the whole story. When word of Burgoyne's surrender reached London on December 6, 1777, the North Ministry informed the American commissioners in Paris that he was prepared to make most any concession to win the colonies back. It was North's gambit, not Burgoyne's surrender, that convinced the Comte de Vergennes, the French foreign minister, that France could maintain its relationship with the United States only by putting a ring on it. France's entry into the war fundamentally transformed it, as Britain's focus shifted to its ancient adversary. So France's entry into the war, Britain was forced to divert troops to confront this new threat, meaning less troops from the Continental Army to deal with. This also meant French ships, troops, and supplies would be sent to America, with the promise of the alliance coming to fruition during the final major battle at Yorktown. It is also worth noting that the French had been supplying American forces as early as 1776, with French officers arriving in 1777. In 1779 and 1780, Spain and the United Provinces, aka the Dutch, respectively entered the war on the American side at the request of the French, although their alliance was technically with France and not the U.S. After arriving in Valley Forge, Washington's men set about building log huts for themselves that could house 12 men in each hut. Over 1,000 were made, to the point that when the population was counted, Valley Forge ranked temporarily as the largest city in America. Sorry, the third largest city in America, not the largest. The population was diverse, with African American soldiers and Native Americans, including a woman named Polly Cooper, who helped to supply the army with white corn. There were other women there too, known as camp followers, who performed a variety of jobs, like cooking, cleaning, laundering, sewing, prostitution, etc. Some of the women were wives and mothers of the officers and enlisted men who chose to join their loved ones at Valley Forge, including Martha Washington. There were also European immigrants, including a former Prussian officer by the name of Baron Friedrich Wilhelm Ludolf Gerhard Augustin von Steuben, long name, who took the position of drillmaster. Under his instruction, the amateur American Army became a professional fighting force. He taught them how to march in multiple columns, which enabled them to quickly form into a battle line. He also drilled them in the use of the bayonet to remove their fear of it. The Continental soldiers had the bad habit of running from British and Hessian bayonet charges, whereas now they'd be able to not only withstand them and hold their ground, but also make charges of their own. He taught soldiers from a variety of units and sent them back to their home units to train the rest. His official rank in the Army was that of Major General and held the position of Inspector General. In addition to improving the fighting quality of the men, he also improved the camp layout and sanitation by putting the latrine on the other side of the camp from the kitchen. That's actually good since the soldiers have the bad habit of doing business anywhere they felt like it. So, with the arrival of spring, supplies, ammunition, clothing, and reinforcements began flowing in and morale soared, especially following news of the French alliance. By May 25th, British General Henry Clinton was in the process of evacuating Philadelphia out of General William Howe left for England. Since transport ships were in short supply, he decided to march his troops across New Jersey to New York City, the last of the troops leaving Philadelphia on June 18th. But why leave? The reason for leaving Philadelphia was due to New York City being the more strategic location and due to the French alliance. Clinton had received orders to adopt a more defensive strategy in the north while attacking the Americans in the south, which was believed to be a weak point. This is why, following the Battle of Monmouth, the war was shifted to the south. General Washington, after convening a war council, made to pursue and attack Clinton's rear guard. This resulted in the Battle of Monmouth Courthouse, where all the relentless training and drilling in the past several months will be put to the test. Valley Forge essentially forged the American Continental Army into a professional fighting force that would go on to win the Revolutionary War and served as the basis, the foundation of the U.S. Army going forward. This is where I shall pick up the next video with the Battle of Monmouth Courthouse. Thank you all for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time on History Inquirer. Thank you.